Hey guys, your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this would be the Combat Series episode number 79 for you guys today. In the first segment today, I'll be sharing my Tyson Fury versus Oleksandr Usyk fight summary. So, in the last night in the sport of boxing in the heavyweight division, we seen part two of what Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk have given us. They gave us their second fight in the calendar year 2024, with Oleksandr Usyk successfully retaining his unified heavyweight titles, defeating Tyson Fury by unanimous decision last night in the sport of boxing. So this will be my fight summary on the heavyweight fight that took place last night. So, just like the first fight, Oleksandr Usyk was successful against Tyson Fury. Now, this second fight around, it was more of a chess match. You could tell both fighters were playing it very cautious at times, calculating their every step, their every movement in the boxing ring. So, in this second fight, it was more of skill. Well, just like the first fight, it was skill versus skill. But you could tell this time around, both fighters were taking it very cautiously. I agree with all three judges scoring this fight in favor of Oleksandr Usyk by a score of 116 to 112. Oleksandr Usyk was just too fast. Too fast for Tyson Fury to keep up with for 12 rounds. He outworked Tyson Fury for a majority of the rounds and landed the cleaner combinations in this second fight, which wowed the judges to go all three in favor of Oleksandr Usyk this time around. And every time Tyson Fury built momentum in that boxing ring, Oleksandr Usyk would just close the door and capitalize on the small mistakes that Tyson Fury would be making in the boxing ring last night. So Oleksandr Usyk was the more aggressive man, continued to walk down Tyson Fury, which is crazy when you think about it, when there was a 55-pound weight difference, with Oleksandr Usyk being the much more smaller fighter than Tyson Fury, and he could still continue to take the fight to him, coming forward. Every time he got hit with the big shots, he was rocked by a couple shots that Tyson Fury gave him. He continued to keep walking down Tyson Fury, which wowed me this time around. And he had a great game plan, landing body shots to slow down Tyson Fury on the offensive side for him. Landed some great overhand rights that stunned Tyson Fury in the middle of the ring as well. Oleksandr Usyk fighting well in different angles, being alert defensively. His footwork was just too much for Tyson Fury to keep up with for 12 rounds. And also, just like he did in the first fight, Oleksandr Usyk closed the door in the championship rounds, leaving us with no hesitation to believe that he was going to win the second fight. So Oleksandr Usyk had a great game plan, but ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, when somebody has your number in combat sports, that's it. And 9 times out of 10, Oleksandr Usyk would defeat Tyson Fury. He just can't keep up with him. So even if there were a rematch, a third fight down the line, which I honestly don't see at this particular point of their both respective careers, it would just be the same outcome every single time. Tyson Fury just fades away in the later rounds when he's fighting a guy like Oleksandr Usyk that is just too much for him skill-wise. He's faster than him. He's quicker than him. He just can't keep up with him. So when someone has your number in combat sports, they just got your number. And we see that with Oleksandr Usyk now having 2 back-to-back victories against Tyson Fury in the last 6 to 7 months in the sport of boxing. So the game plan here with Tyson Fury deciding to add more weight to fight Oleksandr Usyk this time around. He's much heavier. We've seen this strategy from Tyson Fury in the past. When he packed on weight in his rematches against Deontay Wilder, he was smaller in the first fights, but then packed on more weight when he fought Deontay Wilder. He had the same strategy, or wanted to have the same strategy, against Oleksandr Usyk this time around, putting on more mass. And there was a big 55-pound weight difference heading into this fight. I mean, Oleksandr Usyk weighed in at 226 pounds, and then you have Tyson Fury, who weighed in at 281 pounds. And I said last week on the Combat Series that the game plan for Tyson Fury would be leaning on Oleksandr Usyk to put that mass on him to tire out and wear out Oleksandr Usyk as the fight went on. That could possibly wear him out in the championship rounds, but that obviously wasn't the case because Oleksandr Usyk just got stronger as the later rounds went on, especially rounds 9 through 12, the most important rounds in a championship fight. So that game plan just didn't work in terms of putting on more mass against the smaller heavyweight fighter that is a natural-born cruiserweight in Oleksandr Usyk. But don't get me wrong, Tyson Fury had a good game plan last night. I mean, he was using the jabs, he feinted well, and was going to the body to slow down Oleksandr Usyk. The thing was, every single time that Tyson Fury had Oleksandr Usyk hurt or on the ropes, Oleksandr Usyk just closed the door and capitalized on the small mistakes that Tyson Fury was making. And he just knew what he was going to do. And that goes to a great game plan that he had all camp, making the small adjustments and tweaking the small things that he did wrong in the first fight, in terms of Oleksandr Usyk's sake. But made the adjustments defensively, kept bringing the fight coming forward, and took away Tyson Fury's best punch of the fight. He handicapped him of his best attribute, which was the overhand right hand that Tyson Fury was looking for all night long. Every time he was about to land it, Oleksandr Usyk would get out the way, counter punch him. He just took away his best attribute. And Tyson Fury kept trying to go for that overhand right over and over and over again, but it just wasn't there for him all night long. So great game plan by Oleksandr Usyk. And I will say, people say a lot. I watched the presentation after the fight, after the interview with Oleksandr Usyk, the media interview after his win against Tyson Fury, and I heard the boxing analyst wrapping up the pay-per-view event last night, Eddie Hearns, there as well. I don't think Tyson Fury looked better in the second fight. I have to disagree with that. I think he looked better in the first fight. Fury was more aggressive in the first fight. He was taking more risk. Even though he was showboating to the crowd, he was taking more risk in the first fight. And you could tell he was very hesitant as the later rounds went on. And that's kind of the case of how he faded away in the later rounds in the second fight compared to the first fight, because he was taking all chances for all 12 rounds in the first fight. So, and he was much lighter in the first fight, could move around faster. He was more pivotal. Could move around swiftly in the first fight compared to what he was in the second fight. You can see he was getting a little gassed as the later rounds went on. Being 281 pounds plus, that's what he weighed in at. Fight night, we don't know what he weighed in at last night. So he could have been much heavier than 281 pounds. But putting all that weight on, I just don't see why he really did that when you think about it. Because when he was lighter, he was just 1 point away from being Oleksandr Usyk in May. The score was 114-113. So putting on more weight, and then at times you have to box off your back foot, putting all that weight on you. When Tyson Fury had to box off the back foot, depending on a jab, when Oleksandr Usyk was walking him down, putting all that weight on your back leg, having to move around for the championship rounds, I just didn't understand that strategy. And despite the adjustments, Oleksandr Usyk just made it look easy in the second fight, beating one of the greatest heavyweights of this generation in Tyson Fury. So that's my breakdown of the fight. Now, we got to give Oleksandr Usyk his credit. I mean, he's an all-time great. And put him in any generation, he's an all-time great. He's one of the greatest to ever do in the sport of boxing. He's going to the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. He's a two-time undisputed champion in two different weight classes, a former undisputed champion at cruiserweight, former undisputed champion at the heavyweight division. And he's got marquee wins at the heavyweight division, defeating Anthony Joshua twice, defeating Tyson Fury twice. Those two alone are some of the greatest heavyweights that we see in this generation, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. And he's also defeated Daniel Dubois. Oleksandr Usyk, for being a natural-born cruiserweight, moving up to the heavyweight division and taking this division over and taking it by storm. You got to put Oleksandr Usyk in the conversation for one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. I'm not claiming that he is, but you got to put him in the light and in the conversation with the guys of Muhammad Ali, Lennox Lewis, and Evander Holyfield as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, based off of what he's accomplished, based off of moving up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. He's dominated this division, and he's not done yet, because that's what I'm about to get into next. But from that perspective, you got to say he's an all-time great, which sets me up for what's next for Oleksandr Usyk. Now, after the fight with him and Tyson Fury, he immediately got interviewed in the boxing ring, and there was the IBF champion, Daniel Dubois, who stepped in the ring and said, "I want my rematch, Usyk, of my robbery that happened in summer of 2023. That was when Daniel Dubois landed the body shot on Oleksandr Usyk. And a lot of people say that it was, and I agree, that it was on the belt line. That should have been labeled as a knockout that night. In the heavyweight division, we don't know what shape the heavyweight division would be in right now if that belt line shot actually counted. But Oleksandr Usyk got time, about 4 to 5 minutes to recover from that, and the rest was history when he knocked out Daniel Dubois in the later rounds. But if you really count that, there's history, so there is a legitimate argument to be made that should happen next. But Daniel Dubois wants that fight next, but he can't overlook what he has to do in February on that loaded Dimitri Bivol and Arthur Beterbiev rematch card. That's a loaded card for February. Can't wait to talk about that. But Daniel Dubois still got to successfully retain that IBF title against Joseph Parker, who is on the biggest roll of his career, beating Deontay Wilder and Zilia Zhang. So that's not an easy task for Daniel Dubois. But if he could get past Joseph Parker, that's going to be a big rematch for 2025 between Oleksandr Usyk and Daniel Dubois, which would be an undisputed heavyweight championship fight. With everything going on and the history that stands between the two respective fighters, that gives Oleksandr Usyk not only a chance to go after the IBF title that he never lost, but to be the first male or female boxer in boxing history to become a 3-time undisputed champion ever in boxing. So that has to be that sounds so great for Oleksandr Usyk, for somebody that was flirting with the idea of going back to cruiserweight. Can you imagine if Oleksandr Usyk were to defeat Daniel Dubois at some point in 2025, become a 3-time undisputed champion, once again being a heavyweight undisputed champion. Then he goes back down to cruiserweight and becomes a 4-time undisputed champion? That would be absolutely nuts. And I think that would make him, if he could do those things that I just said, that he would mark himself as the greatest boxer since Floyd Mayweather retired in 2017. But that's asking for a lot. But I think we will get Oleksandr Usyk versus Daniel Dubois in 2025 in an undisputed heavyweight championship fight. Now, what's next for Tyson Fury? Tyson Fury, after watching this fight, I don't think Tyson Fury's finished. I think he has some gas still left in the tank. I think those fights, the trilogy that he had with Deontay Wilder, did take a lot out of him. You could tell he's not as aggressive, and he does fade away in the later rounds in his fights. You can look at his 2 fights against Oleksandr Usyk, he faded away. You can look at his fight even against Francis Ngannou, he faded away in the later rounds. So I think that trilogy did take a lot out of Tyson Fury. But there's still one more big fight to be made for Tyson Fury, and he can't walk away from the sport of boxing without making this one fight happen. And that's against Anthony Joshua. I think Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua in 2025 makes a lot of sense. That's a heavyweight fight that we should have got a long time ago. I don't understand why we can't get that fight now. Not only does the fight make sense, but it would be the biggest UK fight in UK history between 2 marquee names of Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. They would easily sell out the Wembley Stadium in the UK. So that's a big marquee money fight that both respective fighters can't leave the sport of boxing without making that fight happen between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. I think that fight's going to happen in 2025. The money's there. Turkey Al-Sheikh could play a part in this because he's put the money together for fights not only for Tyson Fury but for Anthony Joshua as well. So I think we could see that during the later part of 2025. But that is my Oleksandr Usyk versus Tyson Fury rematch summary, and that's what I do believe the 2 routes these 2 respective heavyweights will take for the calendar year 2025.